Jada Blackwell was trouble wrapped in silk. At 19, her body was a temple of temptation. Honey-dipped skin glowed under the streetlights. Curves sculpted by the gods themselves filled every inch of her tight jeans. Men stopped, stared. Jada was used to it. Her eyes, dark and knowing, held a challenge, a promise. Her lips, full and always glossed, whispered of forbidden pleasures. Jada knew her power. She owned it. And in the concrete jungle of the Bronx, that power was a dangerous game, one she played with masterful precision. Paulie, her boyfriend, was all boyish charm and easy smiles. He had a way of making her laugh, of bringing a lightness to her life that she hadn't felt in a long time. His carefree attitude was infectious, and it was easy to get lost in his world of simple pleasures and youthful exuberance. At 20, he was already lost in her web. He adored her, worshipped her even, and it showed in every little thing he did. From the way he looked at her to the small, thoughtful gifts he would bring, Paulie was head over heels. He showered her with cheap gifts and promises he couldn't keep. But it wasn't about the material things for Paulie. It was about the sentiment behind them. Each gift, no matter how small or inexpensive, was a token of his affection, a piece of his heart. Jada accepted them all with a practiced grace. She liked Paulie. He was safe, comfortable. He represented a kind of stability that was rare in her world, a constant she could rely on. But deep down she knew that safety and comfort were not enough to satisfy her restless spirit.
Almighty, a shadow rising from the Edenwald projects, was different. He was a force of nature, a man who had carved out his own path in a world that was unforgiving and harsh. He was all hard edges and street smarts. His life had been a series of battles, each one leaving its mark on him, shaping him into the man he was today. He was tough, resilient, and unyielding. His eyes, cold and calculating, saw through her facade. He excited her. There was a raw, primal energy about him that drew her in, a magnetism that was impossible to resist. With Almighty, there were no pretenses, no masks. He saw her for who she truly was, and that thrilled her. His touch was possessive, branding her with his desire. It was a stark contrast to Paulie's gentle affection, and it awakened something deep within her. With Almighty, she felt alive, every moment charged with intensity and passion.
And then there was Mike, older, established. He was a man who had seen the world, who had built an empire with his own two hands. He exuded confidence and authority, a man who was used to getting what he wanted. He reeked of money and power. Everything about him spoke of success, from his tailored suits to his expensive accessories. He was a man who had everything, and he made sure everyone knew it. A Wall Street tycoon who saw Jada as an exotic flower blooming in the urban decay. To him, she was a rare gem, a beautiful anomaly in a world of mediocrity. He was captivated by her, and he made it his mission to win her over. He showered her with diamonds and designer labels. His gifts were extravagant, each one more lavish than the last. He wanted to show her a life of luxury, a world where she would want for nothing. He whispered of a life beyond the Bronx, a life she craved. With Mike, she saw a future filled with possibilities, a chance to escape the confines of her current existence and step into a world of endless opportunities.
3 men, 3 worlds, each one offering her something different, each one pulling her in a different direction. It was a delicate balance, a tightrope walk between desire and reality. Jada juggled them all, a delicate dance on the edge of a razor. She was a master of her own fate, navigating the complexities of her relationships with a skill that was both impressive and dangerous. In the end, it was her choice to make, her path to choose. The Bronx throbbed with a raw energy. The streets were alive with the hustle and bustle of daily life, where every corner told a story. The air was thick with the aroma of street food, and the sounds of laughter and chatter filled the atmosphere. Graffiti-stained walls echoed with the rhythm of salsa and hip-hop. Street musicians played their hearts out, their beats resonating through the alleys, creating an urban symphony that was uniquely Bronx.
Jada, draped on Paulie's arm, moved through the streets like a queen. Her presence commanded attention, and she basked in the admiration of those around her. Here, she was in her element, known, desired. The neighborhood was her kingdom, and she ruled it with grace and confidence.
Manhattan was a different beast, sleek, sophisticated, the city that never sleeps, where dreams were made and broken in the blink of an eye.
Mike's penthouse apartment overlooked Central Park, a world away from the gritty reality of her neighborhood. It was a sanctuary of luxury and opulence, a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of the Bronx. Here, Jada sipped champagne and pretended. She wore the mask of sophistication, blending into a world that was not her own. She played the role of the sophisticated seductress, reveling in the envy in the eyes of Mike's colleagues. Each glance, each whisper, fed her desire to belong.
But the guilt gnawed at her. The duality of her existence weighed heavily on her soul. The lies she told, the secrets she kept were a heavy burden. Each deception was a thread in the web she had woven, trapping her in a life of pretense, one that grew heavier with each passing day. As the sun set and the city lights flickered on, Jada wondered how long she could keep up the charade.
The truth, like a cockroach in the dark, always finds a way to reveal itself. A chance encounter, a whispered name. Suddenly, the walls Jada had so carefully erected began to crumble.
Paulie saw her with Almighty. The possessive glint in Almighty's eyes told him everything he needed to know. The easy smile was gone, replaced by a mask of hurt and betrayal.
Mike, his world built on control and order, was not a man to be crossed. He hired a private investigator. The photos arrived in a plain manila envelope.
Jada caught in a web of her own making. The stench of garbage and despair hung heavy in the air. The alleyway, a forgotten corner of the city, was a place where shadows seemed to come alive, whispering secrets of past misdeeds. The walls, stained with grime and graffiti, bore silent witness to countless confrontations and broken dreams. The air crackled with tension. The three men, drawn together by fate and Jada's deceit, faced each other in a dingy alleyway. Each step they took echoed ominously, a prelude to the storm about to break. Their eyes, filled with a mix of anger and betrayal, locked onto one another, searching for a sign of weakness. He was a man possessed, consumed by a jealousy he couldn't control. His mind, clouded by suspicion and rage, replayed every slight, every whisper, every glance that fueled his paranoia. The green-eyed monster had taken hold, and there was no turning back. Mike, his face contorted with rage, pulled out a gun. The metallic click echoed in the silence. It was a sound that seemed to freeze time, a harbinger of the violence to come. His hand trembled slightly, but his resolve was unshakable. 2 shots rang out. The smell of gunpowder mingled with the coppery tang of blood. The alleyway, once filled with the sounds of distant traffic and murmured conversations, was now a scene of chaos and violence. The echoes of the gunfire seemed to linger, a grim reminder of the irreversible actions taken. Paulie crumpled to the ground, his eyes wide with disbelief. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, a searing agony that stole his breath. He tried to speak, to call out for help, but no words came. His world narrowed to the cold, hard ground beneath him and the spreading warmth of his own blood. Almighty, caught off guard, fell beside him. The shock of the impact reverberated through his body, leaving him momentarily stunned. He reached out, his fingers brushing against Paulie's, a silent plea for understanding in their final moments. Jada screamed, a primal sound ripped from the depths of her soul. It was a cry of anguish, of loss, of a future shattered in an instant. Her voice echoed through the alley, a haunting wail that would linger in the memories of those who heard it, a testament to the tragedy that had unfolded. The echo of gunshots faded into the night. Silence descended, heavy, suffocating. Mike stood frozen, the gun still smoking in his hand. His eyes, filled with a chilling detachment, met Jada's.
You're mine. Always have been. Always will be.
Then with a final glance at the carnage at his feet, he turned and disappeared into the labyrinthine alleys, leaving Jada alone with the consequences of her actions. The flashing lights of police cars sliced through the darkness, the air filled with the cacophony of sirens and shouting, but Jada heard none of it. She sat numbly on the filthy pavement, the metallic scent of blood heavy in her nostrils. Two men lay dead, their blood stained her hands, her soul. Poorly,